Christmas used to be my favorite day of the year. My parents have this tradition. Every December 25th, no matter what, everyone comes back to their house. Same food, same carols, same old creaky ornaments that barely hang on the tree branches. It doesn't matter how old we get, how far we move, or what's going on in our lives. Christmas is sacred. It's the one day we all agree to hit pause on the outside world and just be family. This year started out just like every other one. We showed up around noon, Molly and I, carrying too many bags and trying not to slip on the icy front steps. She looked beautiful, like always. She wore this deep red sweater dress with a gold necklace I'd given her last year, the one with the tiny, a charm on it. I remember thinking she looked like someone straight out of a holiday ad. Effortlessly warm, polished, confident. She kissed my mom on the cheek, handed my dad his favorite bourbon, and started chatting away with my brother Nate like they were old college buddies. She fit in so well, almost too well, but I didn't realize that then. Back then, I was still in denial. I still believed everything was exactly what it looked like. We settled into our usual spots in the living room. The fire was going. The smell of cinnamon and pine filled the house. Bing Crosby was crooning softly in the background, and there were at least 4 bottles of wine already open between the kitchen and dining room. We were laughing, trading stories about old family vacations and terrible past gifts. At one point, my dad told the story about how I tried to microwave an aluminum wrap sandwich in college and nearly set off the dorm fire alarm. Everyone laughed, including Molly, who added some exaggerated sound effects like she'd heard the story 100 times. It was perfect, except it wasn't. I think back now, and there were little things, moments where I felt this weird pull, like something was slightly off-kilter but not enough to name. Molly's laugh felt a little louder than usual. Her wine glass never seemed to stay full for long. Every time her phone buzzed, which was often, she would quickly flip it face down on the armrest. I noticed. I pretended not to. When we finally sat down for dinner, the lights were dimmed and my mom had gone all out. Candles, real napkin rings, that heavy centerpiece she only brings out once a year. Molly complimented everything, of course. She always knew the right things to say. My mom beamed. Nate rolled his eyes, but even he couldn't help smiling. Dinner passed in a warm, hazy blur. Everyone had seconds, and we all teased my dad for accidentally burning the rolls again. At one point, Molly took my hand under the table, gave it a little squeeze and smiled. I smiled back. I didn't know I was holding on to a life that had already started slipping through my fingers. Dessert was my mom's bourbon pecan pie. Sweet, messy, slightly burned around the edges, just like every year. She served it with a scoop of vanilla ice cream that immediately began to melt. We were all lounging back in our chairs, bellies full, talking about the most forgettable things in the world. What shows we were watching, how awful the airport crowds were this year, whether we should switch to Secret Santa next time instead of doing full-on gifts. Then Nate clapped his hands and said, "Oh yeah, we still haven't opened presents." We moved back to the tree in the living room, the same one my parents have used for over 2 decades. Same ornaments, same old blinking lights, where one bulb is always out but no one bothers to fix it. The gifts were mostly small things. Books, socks, local roasted coffee, a few framed photos from earlier in the year. Molly gave Nate a Star Wars Lego set because she knew he was a grown man who still loved that stuff. My mom cried when I gave her a photo calendar I'd made of our family dog, who passed away last spring. It was light, easy, joyful. Then Nate handed me a box. It wasn't wrapped like the others, just white paper with silver ribbon, very polished. There wasn't a tag except one tiny sticker, to Adam. "For me?" my mom asked, confused. "I don't think so." "Not mine," Molly said casually, sipping champagne. "Maybe you ordered something for yourself and forgot?" I chuckled. Wouldn't be the first time. I sat down and peeled off the paper, careful not to tear it. My mom always saves the wrapping, a weird family tradition. I opened the lid, expecting maybe a book or a mug or something funny Nate picked up last minute. Instead, I saw a bracelet. Not a cheap one either. Silver with a fine clasp. Delicate but masculine. And right there, on the inside of the band, was an engraving in neat cursive. S to M, always. I stared at it. Everything around me faded. The voices, the music, the flickering lights. I stared so hard at the bracelet it felt like it was staring back. S to M. My stomach dropped. My name's Adam. Her name is Molly. No one in this house starts with an S. I didn't say anything. I just held the bracelet like it might dissolve in my hand if I waited long enough. Molly noticed. She went still for maybe half a second, just a flicker, but in that instant I saw it. Something passed through her expression. Panic? Recognition? Guilt? I couldn't tell, but I saw it. Then she laughed. A little too loud. A little too fast. "Oh my God! That's not supposed to be in there," she said, waving her hand like it was a sitcom misunderstanding. Wow, that's awkward. That must be from work. We had a secret Santa thing. Somebody must have gotten the gift tags mixed up." Nate raised an eyebrow. "S to M? That from someone in HR or something?" Molly shrugged. "I don't even remember who had who. I just tossed everything in the car when I left the office. Seriously, it's not mine. Must have gotten swapped with one of my bags." She laughed again, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I looked back down at the bracelet. My hands had gone cold. I placed it gently back in the box and closed the lid. "Guess I'll find out who it belongs to," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. Everyone nodded, chuckled awkwardly, tried to go back to the festive energy. Nate said something about needing another drink. My dad made a joke. My mom forced a smile. No one looked at me. No one looked at Molly. And no one said another word about it. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling in the old bedroom I grew up in, listening to the sound of Molly breathing beside me. Soft, rhythmic, like everything was normal. Like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't just shrugged off a bracelet with a strange man's initials inside it while sitting 2 feet from my mother. I don't even remember turning off the lamp. I just remember that moment. Her laugh. Her explanation. How quickly it all came out. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like this wasn't the first time she had to think on her feet. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. Because the alternative was too big. Too ugly. But something had cracked open in me the moment I read those initials. And now the flood was coming through. At around 3 in the morning, I slipped out of bed and walked down the hall to the kitchen. The house was silent. No wind. No heater sounds. Just stillness. I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the sink in the dark. That's when the memories started rushing in. All the little things I had brushed off, made excuses for, laughed away. Her phone always on silent. I used to joke that she was trying to avoid spam calls. She'd smile and say, "Exactly. The late nights. Team dinners. Project deadlines. Oh, traffic was insane. I had to stop for gas, my phone died. You know how it is. The gym. That one stuck with me more than the others." Molly hated working out. She used to mock those Instagram fitness influencers. And then, one day out of nowhere, she became one of them. Running 3 times a week, protein shakes, high-waisted leggings, watching videos on proper squat form. I'd encouraged her at the time. I thought maybe she was just focusing on herself more, trying to feel better. But now it felt like preparation, like she was shaping herself for someone else. I thought about that time in September. I'd gone out to her car to grab a charger and caught her wiping down the inside of the passenger side window. She laughed when I asked what she was doing. "Dust," she said. "It was fogging up earlier. You know how gross it gets." I believed her. And then there was her laptop. Password changes every week. She used to let me order food on it. Then suddenly, she was shutting it the second I walked in the room. One time I asked if I could borrow it. Mine was updating. And she laughed and said, "Don't go through my 800 open tabs unless you want to see me spiral." Even that I took at face value. Everything I took at face value. I felt like a fool. But not an innocent one. A willing fool. A man who saw the signs, noted them quietly, then tucked them away because he didn't want to deal with the mess they hinted at. A man who was more in love with the idea of a happy marriage than the reality of the one he was actually living in. And now the cracks were spreading. I stayed at the sink a long time, staring out the window into the darkness of my parents' backyard. A place I used to build snow forts in. A place where, once upon a time, I told Molly I couldn't wait to raise kids of our own. That same backyard now looked like a different planet. Eventually I went back to bed. Molly shifted when I got under the covers. She reached for me in her sleep, mumbled something. I didn't move. I just laid there, wondering who S was, wondering how long I'd been losing her without even noticing. The next morning, Molly acted like nothing happened. She smiled through breakfast, thanked my mom again for the pie, teased Nate about spilling coffee on his sweater. She wore that same red dress from the day before, with a scarf now thrown casually over her shoulder like she was in a catalog. "Sorry again about that weird bracelet thing," she said to me, chuckling as we loaded up the car. "So embarrassing. I'll bring it back to work and figure out who it belongs to." I nodded. "Yeah, weird mistake." She kissed me on the cheek and climbed into the passenger seat. I stared at her hand resting casually on her lap as I started the engine. Her nails were freshly done, soft pink. No chips. Perfect. Everything about her had started to feel that way lately. Too perfect. Controlled. Curated. We didn't talk much on the drive back. When we got home, she went straight into the bedroom and changed into sweats. Said she was exhausted. Said she might nap. I told her I needed to check emails. Instead, I sat on the couch in silence, replaying everything again. All the little things I'd explained away. The new gym habit. The sudden need to get out of the house after arguments. The way she'd started pulling away from my touch at night, saying she was just tired or not feeling well or had a headache. Always a reason. There was one night in October I couldn't stop thinking about. She'd come home late from one of those team-building dinners and went straight to the shower. I remember asking her how it went, and she said, "Fine," but her voice was off, distant. After her shower, she came to bed with wet hair and pajamas I'd never seen before. Silk. Pale blue. I complimented her, tried to pull her close. She kissed me on the cheek and turned away. I convinced myself I was just being needy. Now I realized something else. Those were the same pajamas she wore on Christmas night. The ones she'd packed for a trip to my parents'. The ones she seemed oddly protective of when folding them into her overnight bag. I don't know why that moment hit me so hard, but it did, like a punch to the chest. Because I remembered that night in October more clearly now. I remembered the way she smelled. Too clean, like she was trying to erase something. I remembered the faint pressure of distance between us, even in the same bed. And suddenly, I couldn't sit still anymore. I stood up, walked to the hallway, and stared at the closed bathroom door. Her laptop was on the nightstand. She always left it open during the day. She worked remote, said she liked to keep tabs on Slack and emails. But now it felt like something else. A door. A vault. I stared at that door for a long time, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. I didn't want to be that guy. The one who checks. The one who snoops. But I couldn't unsee the bracelet. I couldn't unknow the initials. S to M. Always. That wasn't a coworker's secret Santa gag. That was something else. Something deeply personal. And I needed to know. I walked down the hall to our bedroom, my feet barely making a sound against the floor. Molly was still in the bathroom, humming to herself. The laptop was open, and for the first time in our marriage, I leaned over it and started reading. I didn't go looking for a secret. Not at first. I just hovered over her open laptop, staring at the screen like it might give me permission. The desktop background was a photo of us at the lake last summer. Molly was squinting at the camera, holding up a sparkler. I looked happy. I remember that day. I'd grilled burgers while she read on the deck, toes in the water. It was supposed to be just us. Peaceful. Now I didn't know if any of it had been real. The browser was open to some design software she used for work. Tabs lined the top of the screen. Project reports, email, one for a hotel booking website. My heart skipped. I clicked that one first, but it was just a general search, nothing logged in. Still, something in me had shifted. I was no longer standing still. I opened her file folder next. She kept everything organized by month. Color-coded even. September, October, November. I don't know what I thought I'd find. Tax documents? Work logs? But something made me click the December folder. And that's where it happened. Inside was a subfolder called Retreat Photos. No password, no encryption, just sitting there like it wanted to be found. I hesitated. My hands hovered above the trackpad. I told myself it could still be innocent, that she'd really gone on a retreat like she said, that this was just a folder full of awkward team-building photos and zipline selfies. But when I opened it, the truth hit me all at once. There were 27 photos. The first few were scenic, trees reflected in water, a lake house glowing at sunset, an empty trail through the woods. They looked like stock images. But then the tone shifted. Photo 5. Molly and a man sitting on the dock, heads tilted toward each other. No one else in sight. Photo 6. Them in the kitchen, laughing. She was barefoot, stirring something on the stove. He was leaning on the counter, staring at her like she was the center of the universe. Photo 8. Them wrapped in a blanket near a fire pit, her hand resting on his leg. That one made my breath catch. And then photo 12, God. It was a mirror selfie. Molly was in pajamas. Pale blue silk ones, the same ones hanging in our bathroom right now. She was curled into this man's chest, smiling at their reflection like she'd never known a single ounce of shame in her life. But what made my blood run cold was his face. I knew him. Stephen. Her new department head. The guy she said she barely knew outside of meetings. The one she once described as weirdly intense about team synergy. I remember him from the company holiday party 2 years ago. Tall, athletic, with that forced casual charisma some managers used to hide ambition. He'd shaken my hand, asked what I did, and then immediately turned back to Molly to tell her he was stealing her for the talent show team. I thought it was odd at the time, but I let it go. Now he was in her retreat photos, holding her, wearing her trust like it belonged to him. I kept clicking through the pictures, each one slicing deeper than the last. Him pouring her wine, her tying a scarf around his neck, laughing. A blurry one of them dancing in the living room, lights low, faces close. There was a video at the end. I don't know why I clicked it. Curiosity? Masochism? The screen lit up with a shaky clip. Molly holding the phone, selfie style. She was lying in bed, her hair messy. She whispered something about missing this place already, then turned the camera towards Stephen, who was lying beside her, shirtless, half asleep. He reached over and kissed her shoulder, muttered something I couldn't make out. She giggled. That was it. Just 20 seconds. But it broke something in me that couldn't be put back together. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even shut the laptop. I just stood up, walked quietly to the hallway, grabbed my jacket from the hook, and stepped outside. The winter air hit me like a slap. Cold and clean and real in a way that everything inside the house suddenly wasn't. I walked down the block with no destination in mind, my hands jammed into my pockets. Every breath felt like it scraped my lungs. I passed a woman walking her dog, nodded mechanically when she said hello. She smiled. I smiled back. It was a reflex, like I was still wearing the mask of who I had been 30 minutes ago. I made it to a small park 3 blocks over, sat on a frozen bench beneath a flickering streetlight, and stared at nothing. I must have sat there for an hour. Thoughts swirled but refused to take shape. I kept seeing that bracelet in my mind. S to M, always. I wondered if he gave it to her at the lake, if she wore it when she kissed him, if she ever took it off. She hadn't been wearing it at my parents' house, but maybe she had earlier, before realizing she had to hide it. Maybe she'd meant to keep it in her bag, but it slipped into the wrong gift box. Fate, karma, stupidity. All I knew was, it wasn't for me, and it never had been. I wanted to throw up, but more than that, I wanted to disappear. Eventually, I walked back home, slowly, like I was dragging a 1,000-pound weight behind me. Molly was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. She didn't even look up when I came in. Just said, "Hey." I was starting to wonder where you went. I didn't answer. She poured a glass of wine and asked if I wanted one. I said no. Then I just stood there. She glanced up. "What?" Cleared my throat. "I saw your photos." She blinked. "What photos?" I didn't look away. "The ones from the lake house. You and Stephen." There was a pause. A breath. Then the performance started. She tilted her head. "Adam, did you go through my laptop?" "No. It was open. I saw the folder." "That's a huge invasion of privacy." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth was already in the room. Molly set her wine glass down. "They're just photos. From a work retreat. Everyone was taking pictures." "Just you and him," I said. "Overnight. At a house you told me was rented for the whole team." "It was rented for the team. Some people left early." "Adam, you're making something out of nothing." I waited. Gave her the chance to tell the truth. Even now, some pathetic part of me was still hoping she'd break down. Say she was sorry. Admit it. Apologize. She didn't. Instead, she scoffed and crossed her arms. "You've been acting paranoid for weeks. This is what happens when you don't trust your partner." My jaw clenched. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie. You just don't know the full story." "I know the pajamas. The ones you wore in that video. The ones hanging in our bathroom right now." Her expression faltered. Just for a second. Then she snapped. "You know what? This is your issue. You're obsessed. You're spiraling over a bunch of photos and making wild assumptions." She picked up her wine glass and hurled it at the wall. It shattered. "You're ruining our marriage with your insecurities." The sound of glass hitting tile rang in my ears. I didn't flinch. I just looked at her. Not the woman I married. Not even a stranger. Just someone I didn't recognize anymore. There was nothing left to say. I walked out again, this time with my phone, my wallet, and an overnight bag. I didn't know where I was going yet. But I knew I couldn't stay. I checked into a hotel that night without saying a word to anyone. The lobby was nearly empty. Christmas decorations still hung around like ghosts. Gold tinsel on fake pine trees. A jazzy instrumental version of Silent Night, humming softly through the speakers. The woman at the front desk didn't ask why I was there alone, why I looked like I hadn't slept in years, or why my hands were shaking as I handed over my ID. I didn't know what to put on the form where it asked for a reason for stay. I wanted to write, "Because the woman I married is lying to my face, and I can't look at her right now." Instead, I just wrote, "Business." I didn't sleep well. The bed was stiff. The heat clicked on and off all night. Every few minutes, the ice machine down the hall made some mechanical choking sound. But none of that was why I was awake. I kept hearing her voice. That perfect tone she used whenever she was trying to flip things around. Make me the villain in a story I didn't even know I was in. The way she said I was spiraling. That I was obsessed. That I was ruining our marriage. And the way she never once, not once, said she was sorry. I left the hotel around noon the next day and drove without a plan. I didn't go home. I wasn't ready to see her. I wasn't sure I ever would be. Instead, I pulled into the empty lot of a nearby park and sat there for hours with the car running, letting the radio play whatever came on. I ignored calls from my mom, ignored texts from Nate, asking if I wanted to come by and help him set up his new espresso machine. Then, finally, my phone lit up with her name. "Molly, can we talk? Please come home." I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete the message and disappear. But the other part, the one that still wanted closure, still needed something to make sense, knew it was time to go back. Not to forgive her, but to hear what she'd try to say when there was nowhere left to hide. When I walked in the front door, everything looked exactly the same. Our shoes were still lined up by the mat. The smell of her perfume still lingered faintly in the air. The dishes from yesterday's breakfast were still in the sink. The only new thing was the silence. Molly was sitting on the couch in leggings and a hoodie, hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked ordinary, like none of this had happened, like she hadn't torn our marriage in half with a folder of photos and a single name I couldn't unsee. She stood when she saw me. Adam, she said, like she was relieved. Thank you for coming. I didn't answer. I dropped my bag by the door and crossed my arms. She gestured for me to sit, but I didn't move. Okay, she said after a moment, nodding to herself. I get it. You don't want to make this easy. I said nothing. She took a breath. I'm sorry. For yelling. For the glass. I was overwhelmed. I waited. That was the apology she had? For yelling? Not for the lying? I said finally. She flinched. I never meant for it to be a lie. That wasn't. I cut her off. Don't. She stopped. Looked down at her hands. Then back at me. It was never supposed to happen, she said quietly. It started small. Stephen and he just understood me. He noticed things. That I didn't? She hesitated. Sometimes, yeah. I let that hang in the air. The insult, the excuse, the deflection. All packed into 4 words. She sat back down on the couch and gestured at the space across from her. Can we please just talk like adults? No yelling. No blaming. I'm not yelling, I said. But if you think there's going to be no blaming, then you really haven't thought this through. Molly sighed. Adam, I didn't sleep with him. Okay. I know what it looked like. But, you didn't sleep with him? I repeated slowly, staring at her. You were in a bed with him. In silk pajamas. You were filming videos with him. You were wrapped up together in photos over 3 different weekends. But you didn't sleep with him. She nodded. It was emotional. That's it. I was lonely and scared. Scared of what? That we were drifting. I blinked. You were scared we were drifting. So you drifted right into Stephen's arms? Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes started to water. Don't cry, I said sharply. You don't get to cry right now. Adam. No. You're not the victim here. I am. You don't get to sit there and pretend you're sorry when you still can't admit what you did. She wiped her cheek. You're twisting this. You don't understand how complicated it was. It wasn't some affair, Adam. It was a friendship that crossed a line. But it wasn't about S***X. I leaned forward. I don't care if you slept with him. That's not the only line. You built a second relationship behind my back. You planned weekends. You bought gifts. You took pictures. You shared things with him you stopped sharing with me. That's worse than S***X. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. I didn't stop. I asked you 3 months ago if something was going on. You laughed in my face. You told me I was being insecure. You said he was barely a coworker. She whispered, I didn't know how to tell you. You could have told me the truth. Her voice rose. And then what? You'd leave me? Throw everything away? I didn't want to lose you, Adam. You already did. The room went quiet. She stared at the floor, breathing shallowly. I watched her carefully, waiting to see if the real Molly, the woman I fell in love with, would come out and just own it. Just say it. But she didn't. She looked up at me, eyes rimmed with red. You're not perfect either, you know, she said bitterly. You stopped noticing me. You stopped trying. You'd rather be at your computer or fixing shelves or buried in your phone. I laughed. It wasn't kind. So now it's my fault you cheated? She didn't answer. I stood. You're incapable of honesty, Molly. That's the only thing I've learned this week. I didn't cheat, she whispered. You're still lying. No, I'm not. I'm not. I shook my head and picked up my bag. She stood too. Where are you going? Back to the hotel. Or maybe somewhere else. I don't care. You can't just leave. Watch me. Her voice broke. Adam, please. We can fix this. We just need to talk it through. Go to therapy. Reset. We can make it work. You had months to fix this, I said. You chose him. No. You made 100 tiny choices, I said. You chose not to tell me. You chose to go to that lake house. You chose to make a secret life and protect it more than the one we had. She didn't argue. She just stared at me, crumbling in real time. You can tell yourself whatever story you want, I said, stepping toward the door. But I saw the truth, and now I can't unsee it. She reached for my arm. Don't, I said. We're done. Her hand dropped. Is that really it? She asked, her voice shaking. After everything? It was over the second I realized you never planned to stop. That night I didn't sleep either. But it wasn't because I was haunted. It was because I finally saw things clearly. Not just what she did, but who she really was, and who I would have to become if I stayed. I left the house just after 9. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout one final thing over my shoulder. I didn't even look back. I just walked out with my overnight bag and my coat zipped all the way up, like I was trying to protect myself from more than just the cold. Outside, the sky was low and heavy with winter clouds. The kind that hang there all day, not snowing, not clearing, just brooding above you. Felt right. I didn't need a dramatic thunderstorm. I needed exactly this. A quiet, gray goodbye. Back at the hotel, the clerk didn't ask questions when I extended my stay. She just handed me a new key card and gave me that faint customer service smile that means, I hope you're okay, but I'm not allowed to ask. I nodded, said thanks, went back up to room 219, where everything still smelled faintly like lemon cleaner and cheap carpet. Then I sat. I didn't eat that night, didn't turn on the TV. I just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, trying to figure out how I'd gotten here. How the person I trusted most had become someone I couldn't even share a room with. I thought I'd feel rage, but I didn't. What I felt was stillness, like my whole life had been a loud, constant hum. Work, marriage, house projects, holidays, text messages, dinners, and now someone had pulled the plug. Everything had gone quiet, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I could finally hear myself think. The next morning, I did what I should have done weeks ago. I called a lawyer. Her name was Denise. Sharp voice, quick to interrupt, no nonsense. When I explained the situation, she didn't pause. You have evidence? She asked. Yes. Good. That'll save us time. Do not delete anything, do not speak to her again without documenting it, and do not move out permanently unless you're ready to give up certain rights. I'm already in a hotel. Then let's move fast. I hung up and immediately forwarded her the folder of photos, the emails, everything I'd kept myself from looking at again. Then I called my job and took the week off. I didn't even have to explain. My boss just said, take care of yourself, and hung up. I wondered for a second if she had been through something like this herself. That afternoon, I was walking through the parking garage beneath the hotel when my phone rang. Blocked number. I usually let those go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Hello. A pause. Then a voice I didn't expect. Adam? Hey, it's Kate. I blinked. Kate? Molly's old coworker. We met once at that fundraiser thing last year. Right? Sorry. I just wasn't expecting. No, it's okay. I know this is weird, but I heard what happened. I sat down on the hood of my car. From who? She hesitated. Someone from the office. And Molly called me a few days ago. She's been unraveling. I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure what the rules were for talking to your wife's old coworkers about the affair she still refused to admit. Kate didn't wait. Look, I'm only calling you because you deserve to know the full story. What she told you. That it was emotional? That it wasn't serious? That's a lie. My throat went dry. How do you know? I sat next to her, Adam. For over a year. I saw the text messages. I saw the way she used to disappear into conference rooms with Stephen. I overheard him telling her she was the only thing keeping him sane. It wasn't subtle. I rubbed my forehead. So they've been together for at least 6 months, maybe longer. She started coming in early, wearing new clothes, bringing him coffee, whispering in corners. She said it was a retreat. Kate actually laughed, but it was a bitter, hollow sound. That wasn't a retreat. That was a getaway. Stephen rented that lake house himself. Said it was for his mental reset. Invited her, told the office he was doing remote evaluations. She packed an overnight bag and said it was mandatory. I swallowed. Anyone else go? Not that I know of. My fingers curled around the phone. She told me it was over. Kate's voice dropped. It's not. I closed my eyes. She kept going. Before she left the office, I heard Stephen talking about transferring her to his new firm. He's opening an office in Chicago this spring. He said, and I quote, "Molly's coming with me. We're starting fresh. No baggage." No baggage. That was me. I was the baggage. I pressed my fist to my mouth, trying not to let the air escape all at once. Kate's voice softened. "I'm sorry. I debated even calling you, but I thought you deserved to know before they disappeared." Disappeared? I mean, started a new life. Cut you out completely. Left you wondering. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Thanks. Be careful, Adam," she said. "Molly's not who she used to be." I hung up and sat there in the cold garage, listening to the dull echo of the city above me. I thought I'd already been betrayed. But this was something else entirely. She hadn't just cheated. She was building an exit ramp, an escape plan, a whole other future. With him, while I was sitting at home, paying bills, planning dinner, organizing her birthday weekend, she was booking flights and calling real estate agents in a city I didn't even know she liked. No apology, no confession, just leaving. Leaving without me. That night, I ignored every text she sent. There were 5. "Molly, can we talk? Molly, I miss you. Molly, I know I messed up. Please. Molly, I'm scared. I don't want to lose you. Molly, just tell me where you are. I'll come." I didn't reply. I blocked her number. Then I opened my laptop and started the divorce paperwork myself. Denise had sent over the preliminary documents. All I had to do was fill in a few details. The section labeled cause had a drop-down. I selected adultery. There were no fields for heartbreak. No place to list emotional fraud, or living a lie, or watching the person you trusted turn into someone else. No way to enter because she never planned to stop. Just dates, names, numbers, property. I entered them all. Then I signed. It was strange, feeling the calm roll in after. I expected more pain, but instead I felt still again. Because now I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't hoping. I wasn't asking for an explanation she'd never give. I wasn't carrying both sides of the story on my back, begging her to tell the truth. Now I had it, and I was done. After I filed for divorce, Molly's silence lasted barely 24 hours. Then came the texts. First defensive. "You're overreacting." We were broken long before Stephen. Then manipulative. "If you tell my family, I'll say you've been stalking me." Then pathetic. "I only ever loved you." He meant nothing. I didn't respond. Every message just confirmed what I already knew. She was never going to take real responsibility. What scared her most wasn't losing me. It was losing control of how the story ended. But I wasn't hers to manage anymore. That chapter was closed. 6 months later, the divorce was final. The house was sold. I moved 3 states away, started my own woodworking business. Quiet, clean, mine. One morning, I got an email invite to a support group for men healing from infidelity. The sender? Molly Harper. I stared at it for a moment, then hit delete. I didn't need to know what she was doing. I only needed to remember. I wasn't there anymore.